Significance of the date of separation. The date of separation affects two major issues in divorce. 1. Property division, and 2. Spousal or partner support. The date of separation will be important in determining the following. In determining property division, what is a separate property asset or debt? And 2, what is a community property asset or debt? On the issue of spousal support, the length of marriage has a direct impact on the amount of time that a spouse will pay spousal support. Community property assets and debts. What is community property and separate property? Generally, all income earned or accumulated by a couple during marriage is presumed to be community property. All assets acquired by a couple during marriage are presumed to be community property. All debts acquired by a couple during marriage are presumed to be community property. Any debts acquired during a marriage are the responsibility of both spouses. There are exceptions to the general community property rule. First, gifts and property received as an inheritance are the separate property of the receiving spouse. 2, debts that a spouse had before getting married are usually the separate property debt of the spouse who acquired it. If the community pays a spouse's separate property debt, the community may have a right of reimbursement, but there's a statute of limitations to that right of reimbursement. Separate property assets and debts. All income earned, assets acquired, and debts incurred after separation are presumed to be separate property of the spouse that incurred them. Examples of community property debt. Husband, before separation, gets an automobile loan to purchase a sports car. The automobile loan is a community property debt. Prior to separation, wife goes on a shopping spree using a credit card. The debt on the credit card is community property. Uncertainty regarding date of separation. Sometimes couples break up, then get back together, then break up again repeatedly. This off-on may go on for several years. For this reason, it is not always clear what is the real date of separation, and therefore what is a pre- or post-separation income, accumulation, purchase, or debt. This is a big problem. During divorce, if the parties do not agree on the date of separation, it will be determined by the family law court judge. The family law judge has to determine the date of the complete and final break to determine what is the community property assets and debts and make an equal division of those assets and debts. Indications of separation. The court will not only look to intent, but also the objective behavior that suggests a complete and final break. When the intent and conduct do not occur simultaneously, the date of separation will be at the time that both have occurred. As a general rule, California family court rulings tend to favor the latest date possible for separation. The general rule of thumb is that the parties are considered separated only after they are living separate and apart. This usually means that the parties are residing in different locations, are not engaged in behavior usually associated with marriage, and have no intent of resuming marital relations. Hence, under California family law, your date of separation may be the date you move out, rather than the date you told your spouse it was over. In other words, you are probably not separated if you are still residing together in the same house. Living under the same roof. However, many couples who want a divorce, consider their marriage over, continue living under the same roof due to finances or for stability of the children, or because they want to avoid prejudicing their case for custody of the children. If you are claiming to be separated but are living under the same roof, you will have to convince the family law judge of that situation. If you want a clear date of separation while you are living under the same roof, it is best to file and serve your spouse with divorce papers while you are still living under the same roof. Spousal support. The general rule under California family law is that marriages are divided into two categories: short and long-term marriages. Short-term marriages are normally marriages of less than 10 years. Long-term marriages are normally marriages of more than 10 years. Assuming there's a substantial difference in the income between the spouses, the general rule in California family court is that a spouse needing spousal support can obtain spousal support in a short-term marriage for half the length of the marriage. Now for long-term marriages. The general rule in California court is that a spouse needing spousal support can obtain a spousal support order in long-term marriages, i.e., marriages of over 10 years or longer, initially for an indefinite amount of time, i.e., there's no termination date, unless there is an agreement between the parties to the contrary. There is a major legal significance if the date of separation is before or after the 10-year mark. Takeaways. The date of separation is very important. The date of separation will affect the following: what is considered community property assets, what is considered community property debts, and the length of spousal support obligation.